Imagine a speech so impactful that, even after 2,000 years, it continues to challenge what we believe about power, success, and happiness. That's what the Sermon on the Mount, delivered by Jesus of Nazareth, represents. But here's the thing no one tells you. These words are not just beautiful ideas meant to inspire. They're a real manual for spiritual revolution, ready to transform your life today. Bold claim? It is. After all, who else would suggest that the meek will inherit the earth, or that loving your enemies is the key to breaking cycles of pain and hatred? Let's get straight to the point. If you're stuck worrying about the uncertainties of tomorrow, trapped in judgment, or chasing happiness through achievements that never seem to satisfy, now is the time to change that. The lessons from the Sermon on the Mount are not just about faith. They're a way of life that brings peace amidst chaos. And here's the best part. You don't need to be perfect to start. Jesus himself speaks of simple steps, like trusting more, judging less, and focusing on what truly matters. Why does this matter now? Because maybe you've tried everything to find balance. Self-help books, well-meaning advice, even meditation courses, but something still feels off. The words of Jesus offer a different path. Something that starts within you, but resonates outward to the world around you. Are you ready to discover how the Beatitudes, the Golden Rule, and the practice of faith can transform the way you see and live life? Jesus of Nazareth was no ordinary teacher. He brought a message that turned the world upside down. The Sermon on the Mount, perhaps his masterpiece of teaching, proposed a spiritual revolution that transcends any era. Imagine hearing someone say that the path to true greatness is to love your enemies and bless those who curse you. It sounds as counterintuitive as planting seeds in a desert and expecting an abundant harvest. Yet, in practice, this is exactly what the sermon proposes. An invitation to break the rules of the ego and embrace humility and forgiveness as tools for personal and collective transformation. The essence of this message lies not just in hearing it but in living it. The Sermon on the Mount is like a roadmap to a fulfilling life, and one of the clearest paths is through the Beatitudes. When Jesus declares, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled," he isn't offering something abstract. It's a direct call for each person to seek justice, not as a distant concept but as a daily practice. Think about how often the thirst for justice is ignored out of convenience. Have you ever stood up for someone in the face of an unjust comment or intervened in a difficult situation? Those moments reflect the depth of this teaching. And, of course, there's the boldness of love your enemies. Who does that nowadays, right? But what seems impossible is actually liberating. When someone hurts you, and you choose to respond with love, who truly wins? It's like letting go of a heavy suitcase that no longer belongs to you. This practice, though challenging, can be lived out in simple ways. A message of reconciliation, a gesture of peace, or even simple silence instead of a verbal counterattack. It's not about being passive, but about living purposefully, using the Golden Rule as a guide. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. The Beatitudes are the beating heart of the Sermon on the Mount, a manifesto of values that challenge everything the world deems important. When Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth," he's not exalting weakness, but controlled strength. To be meek here is to be someone with power, but who chooses humility. It's like a farmer who patiently tends the land, knowing the harvest doesn't come overnight. This quiet strength has the power to turn conflicts into opportunities for peace. The radicalism of these messages runs even deeper. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, may sound paradoxical. Why value pain? But Jesus isn't speaking about sadness from suffering. He's talking about a heart sensitive to what's around it. It's the ability to feel deeply for injustice and not be indifferent to what harms others. Think of someone who dedicates their life to humanitarian causes or who, even with little, extends a helping hand. These are the ones truly comforted because they find purpose in their tears. Each of the Beatitudes feels like a piece of a puzzle that, when assembled, reveals a path to spiritual revolution. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy is a constant reminder that the world doesn't need more judges but more healers. An act of mercy can be as simple as forgiving an emotional debt or as grand as transforming someone's life with an unexpected act of kindness. Interestingly, these actions often return to the doer, like a cycle of grace that never ends. If there's one idea that encapsulates the spirit of the Sermon on the Mount, it's the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Simple, direct, yet revolutionary. In a world where so many actions are driven by self-interest or revenge, Jesus of Nazareth proposes something that goes against the grain. Think about it. If every interaction you had were guided by this principle, how many conflicts could be avoided? A simple example would be choosing to listen patiently to someone instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. Small changes like this can build bridges where there were once walls. And then comes the big challenge. Love your enemies. Not just tolerate them or ignore them, but actively love them. Sounds almost absurd, doesn't it? But Jesus knew that this kind of love is a transformative force. It breaks the cycle of hatred and revenge that eats away at the human soul. Imagine someone who faces constant criticism at work, but responds with genuine kindness and help. It's not a passive attitude, but a demonstration that true power lies in the choice to act with compassion. After all, loving your enemy is freeing yourself from the chains of anger. This message isn't just for extraordinary contexts. It's practical and daily. Consider dealing with difficult people, a neighbor who always complains, or a coworker who loves to point out your mistakes. Practicing the golden rule and love for enemies can be as simple as an unexpected smile or a gesture of goodwill. It may seem small, but the impact is profound because it changes the dynamic of a relationship. And this change benefits not only the other person but also transforms your entire outlook on life. When Jesus proclaimed, "You cannot serve both God and money," during the Sermon on the Mount, he wasn't just presenting a philosophical idea. He was offering clear guidance to redefine our spiritual priorities. We live in an age where the pursuit of material possessions is often mistaken for happiness. But does a new car or the latest phone truly bring peace of mind? Jesus challenges us to look beyond this, to trust that when we prioritize the spiritual, everything else falls into place. It's like planting seeds in the right soil. Over time, the fruits will appear. This message becomes even more powerful when he speaks about anxiety and faith. Do not worry about tomorrow doesn't mean being careless, but trusting that there's a greater purpose at work. Imagine a gardener who tends to their plants with dedication, but knows they can't control the weather or growth. Anxiety dissolves when we understand that some things are beyond our control. Practically, small changes can help. Setting aside moments for daily prayer or meditation can be a great way to cultivate this trust. Jesus also invites us to take an honest look at our motivations. He reminds us that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's a constant reminder that what we value shapes who we are. Are we spending our time and energy on things that truly matter? A good exercise would be to list your weekly priorities and compare them to your spiritual values. Surprisingly, we often notice misalignment. Realigning these priorities can transform not just how we approach work, but also our relationships and pursuit of true happiness. The Sermon on the Mount isn't just a collection of spiritual ideas. It's a practical manual for living with purpose and balance. When Jesus says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged," he highlights something universal: the human tendency to point out others' flaws while ignoring our own. Imagine a family argument where everyone is trying to prove they're right. What if, instead, someone chose to listen, reflect, and understand? This simple act of withholding judgment can turn a conflict into a space for peace and understanding. Another powerful teaching is about anxiety, something that consumes so many people today. Do not worry about your life might sound idealistic, but it holds practical wisdom. Think of the energy we waste worrying about things we can't change. A way to apply this is through simple habits like practicing gratitude. Before bed, write down 3 good things that happened during the day. This practice trains your mind to notice what's already working in your life, shifting focus away from worries. Moreover, Jesus challenges us to be active in practicing faith, not just passive listeners. He compares this to a man building his house on rock, able to withstand life storms. But how do we build this solid foundation? It can be as simple as dedicating a few minutes daily to reading spiritual texts, meditating on the Beatitudes, or even serving someone in need. Small gestures, like offering your time or help to a friend, reflect what it means to put faith into action, turning it into a way of life. The Sermon on the Mount wasn't just a message to be heard, it was a call to action. Jesus emphasized this by comparing those who practice his teachings to a wise man building his house on rock. He knew that hearing is easy, but living these words requires courage and commitment. Imagine the impact of starting each day with the intention of applying a simple lesson like the Golden Rule. Treating others as you would like to be treated can transform not only your life, but also the environment around you. It's like planting trees that will provide shade and fruit for many. This action doesn't need to be grandiose. Often, it's the small gestures that build the solid foundation. When Jesus spoke of loving enemies or the importance of forgiveness, he wasn't asking for the impossible. He was inviting transformation. Start with something simple, a message of reconciliation, a prayer for someone with whom you have conflict, or even a smile towards someone who didn't expect it. These acts are the bricks that build a house capable of withstanding life's emotional and spiritual storms. What's fascinating is that this practice doesn't just benefit others. It transforms you as well. Those who apply the principles of humility, spiritual priorities, and faith in action experience something rare, an inner peace that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. After all, when the house is well built, the wind may blow, but it won't fall. And in the end, it's not just about surviving the storms, but growing through them with renewed faith and purpose. Now that you've uncovered the transformative power of the Sermon on the Mount, the big question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Jesus of Nazareth didn't deliver these teachings for them to stay theoretical. Every word, from the Beatitudes to the Golden Rule, is an invitation to action. So, take a look at your life right now. What changes can you start making today? It could be as simple as reevaluating your spiritual priorities or practicing love for your enemies. Or maybe even letting go of that anxiety weighing you down and trusting a little more in faith. But don't fool yourself, the path isn't easy. It will require you to challenge some of your deepest beliefs and open yourself to a new way of living. And the question remains, are you willing to take that first step? Imagine how life could look 6 months from now, lighter, more aligned, and with renewed purpose. Are you ready to experience that? Or will you stay where you are, letting life pass by while the storms shake your house? Remember, what sets the wise apart from those who only listen is action. So, start small, but start. And to keep deepening your journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's so much more to come, and the next step in your spiritual transformation could be just one click away. Will you join in?